You're in this material you gave us, you looked at opening up the Anselmo at the same time and the Lexington in regard to zinc. Did that ever really happen?
No, it did not. As I say, the price of zinc never got to the point where we could see our way, and the longer the mine stayed down, the more costs and time was involved in reopening. And those studies indicate that there were selective areas, of course, that were better than others. There are some headings in the Lexington mine that run as high as 7 ounces of silver in the working places when they shut it down. That, because most of the zinc mines had a pretty good silver credit, up to carry the burden too.
John was looking at the stuff from the Stewart, and the Stewart mine, he said, was a great gold producer.
Early, it must have been very early on, because there was nothing but a copper producer in my time.
In your time. But would there always be a byproduct of...
Oh, yes. I don't remember the numbers that's shown in some of those reports I gave. It was like 0.005 ounces of gold and 0.1 ounces of silver, something like that.
But
and in the metallurgical process, between flotation and smelting and roasting and so forth, we never got barely over 50% of what was in the ore in the way of gold and silver. It wound up ultimately coming out of Perth Amboy in New York as a residue that was shipped from the Great Falls refinery. In the electro refining of copper cathodes and anodes, the residue that dropped out in the bottom of the tank was sent back to a special plant to Perth Amboy to collect the gold and silver.
But ultimately did come out as being the company was a very solid producer of those two mills.
Yes, in not great quantities, but it was, we always showed it in if you notice in those cost reports I gave you, there's what they call metal credits as part of the price of copper on the copper side. Metal credit, that's gold and silver.
Yeah.
And 25 cents or something would be a substantial, per ton of ore, would be a pretty substantial, at least out of the greater Butte.
Okay. I have some technical terms I want you to explain. What is gob?
Gob? Well, that's a miner's term for the leftovers, the backfill waste and so forth. And they did, of course, that mining, of course, so you know what that was. Heavily timbered. And in the early days up around the 300, 400 level around Anaconda, same area where we blockaded leather. They had to, of course, that stumps are 90, 100 feet wide and as much as 1,000, 2,000 feet long. And of course, if you just left the timber standing empty, you'd create not only a collapse problem, but you would also have a tremendous fire problem. So the attempt was to backfill with whatever was considered waste. And waste, of course, was developed when they were driving the approach crosscuts and the drifts and the raises and things which were not in ore, but led to the ore. So all of that went back in the scope. And if there was leaner areas of ore that didn't appear to be profitable, those would be kicked back into the ore to be dispersed. So why they came up with the name gob, I don't know. In the Emma mine, for instance, the subsidence that's in that whole area down there, that was done by that method of mining for many years, but the couple of years that I was involved with it, we were using a sand fill. F&S company delivered a wet sand product and we sluiced it in with water through the steel pipes and tightly backfill those open slopes. So that was eliminated. Settlement hasn't been done from day one. But that's what gobs are. And of course, over the years, there were many underground fires, and they quenched those by introducing tailing and bulkheading off big areas and stuffing it as best they could with wet tailings, 50% water, put the fires out and also filled the voids basically. So that all became part of what we call a job. And even with all those precautions, why some of that job country came out so warm we couldn't put your hand in.
Interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Belmont. The Belmont's an old mine, but you had a lot of correspondence regarding battery-grade manganese. And manganese started to be a hot metal that the company was really aggressively mining in about the 50s, 40s, 50s.
Well, during my time here, which again started in 1952, the Belmont was operating, and I think it went down within 2 years after I arrived on the scene. And the reason, of course, is economics, but it was a tough mine. Instead it was deep, 60-degree or so dips, as they had Anaconda, Stewart, and most of the other mines. This was a flatter vein system, and most of the miners that I knew, I was only in the mine once when I got there, complained about it being one of the hottest mines now. And because there's a lot of problems with it, but on the other hand, I noticed in those reports that it was one of the top money makers there for many years.
And it was one of the places where they developed the manganese. Is that right? Is that they really mined manganese out of the Belmont?
I don't recall manganese at the Belmont. The Trevona and the Anselmo, or not the Anselmo, but the Trevona and the Emma and the Orphan Girl, I think that's the name.
Okay. I might have this in the wrong file folder, which is why. So that's a thing I'm going to make a note of. Okay. Then you have a whole set of stuff in this material regarding the Leonard. And you know, the Leonard was an interesting mine, but it also, was it manganese or was it?
It was copper.
It was copper. And they moved the Leonard head frame to the Kelly.
And the hoist itself, one of those two hoists at the Kelly was a Leonard hoist.
Okay.
Now the Leonard was a off again, on again mine for many years. It was jeopardized by the dock caving. Subsidence was supposed to take it out within about 5 years of the time we started caving. And for that reason we had abandoned the mine, taking what, was easy to get and the best there was from the scoping area. And lo and behold, after we had shut the Kelly down in favor of the pit, that shaft was still not good but usable. So we refurbished it and put a hoist down on a 2,000 level of the Kelly mine, which was connected to it.